Making News Live, your network to a new career and life. Women Making News is a nonprofit working to lift up, empower, and fast-track women in their journey to a more rewarding career and life.
Welcome, everyone, to Women Making News Live. Women Making News is a new nonprofit organization with the mission to uplift, empower, and fast-track women in the workplace. All women, regardless of your current role, industry, enterprise, if you have a dream and a desire to move forward, to move back in, a quest to the C-suite, we want to be beside you along that journey. Today with me is our special guest, Tiffany Grandchamp. Tiffany is the founder and CEO of Women Lifting Women. Tiffany, welcome to Women Making News.
Hi, Demmie. Thank you for having me today.
Okay, we're going to get started. And I like to go to the beginning. I have been curious about your organization since it first appeared on my screen, Women Lifting Women. Can you tell us about how you named the organization? You know, a name has such inspiration and spirit. Where did the name come from?
Yeah, actually, Demmie, the name was an accident. And I'm really glad that it turned out to be an accident. I was originally building this company and it was titled Grandchamp Consulting. That came from a place where a lot of times people in my life have said, you have a really cool last name, you should do something with it. And I thought, well, why not use it to start a company? And as I was building out promotional material for the company, the tagline always was Women Lifting Women, because that is what we did. That's who we served. That's how we operated. And I was sitting there one night looking at some business cards that had been ordered and thinking, this doesn't fit. This really isn't who we are. And I looked at the tagline one more time and I said, that's it. That's really who we are, is Women Lifting Women. So I filed all of the paperwork, changed the name to Women Lifting Women as the company name. And I was really pleasantly surprised that no other company in the United States had the name Women Lifting Women. And so I immediately started the process of trademarking the company name, because I thought, wow, I just assumed somebody else would have this. And since they didn't, hence Women Lifting Women as a company was born out of really the mission of what we are and what we do.
Right. So lifting, women lifting women. So say more about the lift, if you will. And, you know, I visualize that lift. Say more about the lift and what does that do for all people in the workplace?
Yes, the lift. So when I came up with the Women Lifting Women attribute to the company, I was actually listening to Rise Up by Andra Day. And so lift has a lot of different meanings. It's also at the foundation of everything that we do. So in the very base level, we really look to lift women through amplifying their voices, magnifying their talents. You know, we talk about lifting them into leadership roles. So it's pretty evident there, but we also interchange that lift word a lot with empower, elevate, because there are so many instances where we've come across women that maybe have forgotten who they are, or the analogy I like to use is they hold up a mirror to themselves and it's muddy or it's cracked, or, you know, they're unable to really see their true selves. And so we like to help women realize their true selves, their true strengths, their true potential. So the lift comes in a lot of different forms.
Yeah.
From a meaningful standpoint, from a service standpoint, the lift is everything that we do. We lift organizations to help see and support women. We lift women into leadership roles. We lift women that are in leadership roles into excellence. So there's a lot of lift of what we do. As a company ourselves, we lift each other. We ensure that who we bring onto the team is seen and heard and supported, and their voice is used to help our clients.
There's a lot in there that you just said. And so let's go back to when you were talking about a woman losing her voice or losing her face in the mirror. That's impactful, what you just said. So there must be a psychological component to what Women Lifting Women provides to your clients. Yes,
that's a great question. A lot of it, when we think about even developing leaders, is beyond just the textbook description of attributes or strategies. There's a lot of psychology behind it. That's one of the reasons why I chose to focus on studying organizational psychology, to understand, organizations as a living, breathing entity and how they can support leaders as a whole. So when you kind of dig deep into that, you start to learn like what is missing in an organization that will help to develop women. And you pair that with just the psychology of being a woman and what are the common things that we struggle with as a woman, and putting those two together and looking at how to help change an organizational infrastructure from the inside to better support women. So we, our group of women consultants have the keen ability to help a woman see in that mirror clearly, kind of wipe off all that mess, see themselves, and also help them to evolve in the workspace and understand the organizational needs that they will have to become a leader, but also what do they need personally to help them grow and become a better leader.
Tiffany, how do male and female executives approach working with an organization with you? Do you find that they get it and seek you out, or is there a great deal of influence and education that you and your colleagues have to impart?
I'm so glad you asked that one. That's something that I've been grappling with lately, is how to build more actionable allies. We have a lot of people that support the mission behind what we are doing. They think this is a great idea. We've established really good partnerships with other organizations that are like-minded. Women Making News, for example, is another like-minded organization. We love to partner with organizations that see it the way we do, but we also want to partner with organizations that may not see it yet and want our help. And so that's men and women alike. Actionable allies are the ones that say, I want to help move the dial on this problem of a lack of women in leadership roles. So I want to help change and redesign the infrastructure of the organization so that it empowers women to elevate at the same pace as men do in our company. So one of the things that we do is we might get called for one reason, but when we get into an organization, it quickly becomes evident that there might be some additional opportunities to help build those actionable allies within the organization so that when we come out and leave, they can still do the work behind us.
So tell us just a little bit about what, I'm curious. So are you 1 day, 2 day, 3 day workshops, or are you, what does a typical program look like if I'm an organization bringing you in?
We have a couple of different ways that we approach it. There are 3 big buckets that we do. We have a long history of really talented consultants that can offer a whole array of resources. So we have what's called a consulting suite that we offer specifically to the woman leader. And just for clarification, we offer support to anybody who identifies as a woman. And so that's really what the consulting suite is. It's a lot of different services, anything from strategy to HR to executive coaching to nonprofit finance. But we also help organizations as a whole. We help them looking at their DEI efforts to do the basic organizational assessments. We help them with strategic planning, but we also help organizations build mentorship programs. We help them assess what is the right fit for a mentorship program. Can we pilot it, test it, build it for the whole company? We also help them advise on staff-led initiatives. When you have more staff involved in driving the change and you fund it and support it, you're going to have better outcomes. So that's our DEI suite for organizations. And then we also help organizations recruit, retain, and develop women. So we really want to help build out on that mission of seeing and supporting women. And those things might look different. Within that, we also offer a formal program of leadership development. And that's a 12-week, 6-module leadership development program for anyone who identifies as a woman. And leadership is a very subjective term. We take anybody who feels that they have something that they're leading in their life.
Yes. That's good. So given where the world is today with diversity, equity, and inclusion, it would seem to me that Women Lifting Women is very well positioned in what your offerings are.
Yes, we hope so. We definitely understand the importance of the diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things that we recognize is that the diversity efforts have been ramped up quite a bit. The inclusion and equity piece is still something that companies are grappling with. You can bring as many diverse candidates in, but how do you retain them? How do you help your organization see them as leadership potential? How do you help those women see themselves as leadership potential? Right. And that's a to your point, a psychological component to it. It's also looking at your organization from a value standpoint. And that's where we talk about retaining and developing women.
It's interesting what you just said there about women seeing themselves as leaders. And so you work with women to see themselves. And that's a good transition for several months ago, Tiffany, you posted, or I think on LinkedIn, and you said that women are doers. And you got you got a lot of activity around what you said there, that women are doers and it's time to break the mold. So would you share with us your thoughts and how that integrates into the work that you do? But first, your thoughts on women being doers, breaking the mold, and transitioning into leadership?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And so one piece of clarity is I don't want people to assume that you're either a doer or you're a leader, because some of the greatest leaders I've ever met are hands-on leaders. They are doers. They'll roll up their sleeves and they'll dig in when they need to. So what I'm talking about is shifting a mindset from doing, which is really having currency awarded toward the amount of work you do or the tasks or the contributions you make, versus the currency being how you do the work. So women, yes, are traditionally very much the doers. They want to help, they want to support, they want to do. There's a lot of recognition and value tied to the amount of work and the doing. But what we're trying to do, we do a lot of work in our leadership development program around this, is to shift that mindset to you can still do, but how you do needs to look differently to prepare you to become a leader. And so the work of a leader, they spend more time focusing on how to delegate, how to lift others, how to empower people on their team so that the work collectively is done. We help them learn how to assign the value to teaching others to do the work, empowering others. And then the value becomes a task that is geared toward themselves versus a whole task list of items that they have to get done to make somebody else happy. So by virtue of empowering other people, building teams, completing the work, they're investing in themselves, and that work pays off and rewards them versus a whole task list of items that's just going to pay off and reward somebody else.
So it sounds like the work of Women Lifting Women, and you have so many different components that all weave together. I hear that. But then the work of, in this area of women being doers, that you really are looking at the whole woman in the work that you do, the whole, let's say the whole person in the work that you do. Does that resonate?
It does. Actually, you just gave an intro to our session 1 of our leadership program, where we first start out with just getting back to who you are. What are your core principles? Really defining, how do I arrive to a conversation? How do I arrive to a meeting in the workplace? And the only way you can define it is to come out of your identity as a professional or in the workplace and really speak to your identity from a guiding principle standpoint. So we teach women and walk through that in the very first session, just like, let's just get down to our bare core truth and name that. And then we segue into, okay, if this is our core truth, who we are, then what are our tendencies? What does it look like if our core truths are overused or under pressure or during stress? And we help women to name that too. And we progress through this 12-week training based off each session. So we start by naming the core truths, naming the tendencies. Then we talk about emotional intelligence. And we continue to navigate through leading high-performing teams, cultural intelligence. We talk about mentorship. So yes, we treat the whole person. So they're positioned to see themselves as leaders, and they actually walk away with a work plan to address any gaps that they might have found during that session or during that program. But the problem that we're still continuing to see is even though a woman walks out of that program and says, I'm a leader, they also need to be in an organization that says, yes, I see you as a leader myself. We teach women to recognize, and I wrote an article about this called Imposter Syndrome as an Organizational Hazard. We also teach women to recognize when you've done all the work, how to say, it's not me, it's you, and identify if the organization is not the right environment. There are steps you take first, which is to have the conversations, because you can be a voice and you can advocate for change and you can help create the change within the organization. But then also, if it's not the right one for you, when is the time to move on to some other organization that might be the right environment to help see you as a leader and motivate you and develop you as a leader?
Yeah, that interests me. And so are you seeing that happen on occasion where a woman says, I get it now, this is not the right organization for me, and finds another home?
I've seen both. I've seen women that say, I'm not comfortable having the conversation. And I've seen women that say, my only solution is to go. And so what we hope to do is find that middle ground, because we want to build allyships with companies too. We don't want companies to lose women because there might be an opportunity that they didn't see, and they're very willing to change something or enhance a program or offer a benefit or see the women differently. They just didn't know how. So what we try to do with each woman is to say, first, before you go, when you recognize I've done all my work, I've identified my areas of opportunities, I know my strengths, I've restructured my teams, I'm leading in the best possible way, but my organization isn't seeing me, then there's other steps before you leave. Who can you reach out to? Who do you share your thoughts with? How do you walk up to them and offer to be part of the solution before you walk away? And if they're receptive, then you can be part of helping an organization see and support women. Right.
So I clearly hear that your organization is focused on women, recognizing that that others are highly important in helping those women grow, whether that be men or whether that be non-binary folks, that you are a part of the whole answer, and that people have to work together. Tiffany, share with me your perspective on women in the workplace and the progress that you see women making. A lot has been said, and I've said a lot, that COVID really put the spotlight on women in the workplace, and that challenges, and you just pick up a newspaper, we don't pick up newspapers anymore, but you pick up you read and you recognize that COVID did have an impact on women in the workplace and in numerous ways. So what's your perspective on women and the progress that women are making in the workplace?
Well, Demmie, I have two different perspectives. I have one that relates to COVID and ties back to what Women Lifting Women is hoping to do in their next phase. But I have just a originating perspective that I've kind of carried with me ever since I was a teenager. And that's women have had significant progress in certain industries in the workplace based on their contributions. It's no secret that there's been massive scientific breakthroughs in history at the hands of a woman. But I think that our organizational infrastructure is still antiquated to the point that the women and the credit that were due to them has not been widely known until recently. And it's no discredit to men. Nothing that we do at Women Lifting Women is intended to discredit men. We have wonderful male allies and we thank them for their support. It's just some antiquated ways of viewing an organization's infrastructure that includes the whole way that the benefits are constructed to support women. And so from a progress standpoint, we have continuously seen progress from women in the workplace. What we haven't seen is the recognition for those contributions and for the progress, because we still have a disproportionate leadership of men to women. We have disproportionate pay of men to women in the workplace. So that's my first perspective, is that we're still lopsided despite all of the progress that women have helped to make in the workplace. And I mention that because the infrastructure is set up that when something like COVID happens, women and men together as family units are forced to make a decision of who's going to stay home with the children, what makes sense. And when you have a disproportionate amount of men in leadership roles to women, then you think about the pay that comes with it. So the person with the higher paying job is going to stay working, while the person with the lower paying job is going to leave the workforce and stay home in the instance of a global pandemic where we're forced to make really hard decisions. So COVID saw a huge, huge surge of women leaving the workplace. And now these women are going to be faced with gaps in their work on resumes, which maybe for the next year or two, people will understand it, but then we're going to get right back into that mindset and habit of judging people for taking time to care for their family, taking time off after having a child. All of the same things that we've continuously had some sort of implicit bias about will continue to come back. So my perspective on the progress is, while that progress continues to happen significantly by women, our recognition of that progress still has leaps and bounds of evolution to take place. So what I talked about actionable allies before, this is what we're looking to build. We need actionable allies in companies with men and women to say, wait, this is not how we continue to do this. We need to recognize, to your point, Demmie, that we had a massive surge of women leaving the workforce and they're going to start returning. So let's look at them differently. Let's recognize their contributions, their skills, not look at a timeline on a resume, not judge them for taking maternity leave when it made sense for them to take it versus their husbands. Let's start seeing women differently and supporting women differently.
Very, very helpful. Yeah, and to your point, I do want to make note that we have a very large audience today. And of that audience, the split between men and women and probably non-binary and transgender is, which I don't totally know what the numbers are there, but it is pretty close to being balanced. And of the men who have reached out to participate in today's broadcast, 40% of that 50% are executives and are CEOs of organizations. And I think that speaks to what you're saying, Tiffany, that the allyship is saying, I want to learn more. I want to learn more from people like Tiffany.
And to those 40%, I would say thank you. Thank you for being an ally. We help you. We've helped many men in the past. We have, numerous amounts of men that, I'll give one example. I had a gentleman that I was working with that was struggling to lead a female who also had a very diverse cultural background. And we spent many weeks together and we talked specifically about the communication differences. We talked specifically about what work looks like when the female considers it successful versus when the male considers it successful. And those two became very close. When I first walked into the situation, it was just a very standard progressive disciplinary process that was taking place. And that female was at a risk for losing her job because she wasn't performing according to standard expectations. And that male was doing nothing wrong. He was doing exactly what the organization had set up infrastructurally for him to do as a good leader. But we spent time getting to know those idiosyncrasies. How this person shows up and thinks that they're doing what's being asked of them is very different than what her male leader was seeing and what he was expecting. Right. So we do that work. And I thank all of the male allies that we have out there that are willing to sit down and see those idiosyncrasies, especially the decision makers who can say, you know what, this process isn't equitable. This process is broken and I'm in a position to change this process.
Right. Yeah. So Tiffany, as we get ready to come to a close, and I just so appreciate you, what challenges you as a CEO serving women?
My biggest challenge is seeing so many bright professional women question themselves. I have met hundreds of successful women. They have great titles. They seem to have overcome the barriers, the glass ceiling, but the challenges they have with advocating for themselves, or the challenges that they have with even just speaking up and challenging a system that seems to be broken, there's still this element of not feeling good enough. And I struggle with that every day. How do I help combat that? Because the more women that speak up just to ask the question or to challenge a status quo, the faster we'll be able to change this.
Yeah, good. And so if I am in the audience of Women Making News, or I'm a Women Making News follower, what do you have for me, Tiffany?
I have something for you. If you were in the audience today, or you were a follower and you came to watch this, again, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you for your allyship, for your support. We have a leadership development program that is launching in the fall. September 16th is the date of the first session. We are offering a 15% discount to the first 5 people that contact us. You can contact us through LinkedIn. You can contact my COO, Anna Kleckner, as well. One of us, if you reach out and connect with us, we will take names, and the first 5 will get a 15% discount to that program.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. I encourage our audience to go run to LinkedIn right now and take advantage of that opportunity and that promotion. Tiffany, I just appreciate you. I appreciate the work of Women Lifting Women, and look forward to see how you continue to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Demmie. It's been a pleasure. I love talking with you, and I love talking about women lifting women. So it was a great morning for me.
Will you come back if I invite you back?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Very good. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
All right. So everything that we do at Women Making News comes through our sponsorships. Our sponsorship and their philanthropy. And right now I'd like to introduce you to this month's sponsor, the CEO of DeCotis Specialty, Mr. Tom DeCotis.
Demmie, thanks so much for letting me be a part of this. We really appreciate it. We are a small private company, and we work as a specialty insurance broker, which helps insurance agencies find carriers and placements for hard-to-place risks. And 20 of our 27 employees are women, and we're spread out amongst 3 offices working the Eastern Seaboard. And the women of our firm have always given us different perspectives. They've helped us see things from a different point of view, and in my experience, have been better trainers and mentors for newer team members, and have really contributed to the overall success of our company. And we have actually 3 women in C-level suite positions. Extremely lucky and blessed to have these women as part of our firm.
All right. Thank you, Tom. So you have 3 C-level women. What positions are they in?
The Chief Financial Officer, the Chief Underwriting Officer, and the Chief Operations Officer.
How come you get to be CEO?
Unlucky, I guess.
Okay. Well, I also happen to know that your firm has a long history of being privately held, and so I just had to ask you that. Thank you for letting me ask you that question. Thank you for joining us today, Tom. Thank you so much for your sponsorship of this broadcast. Because of your sponsorship, Women Making News was able to be in a position to award its very first scholarship. And we're going to say more about that scholarship, but it would not have occurred without the philanthropic motivation of all of our sponsors from our last broadcast and our sponsorship from you today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it is just beyond exciting for me because it's always been a part of the vision for us to, looking back at the mission, to uplift, empower, and fast track women in the workplace. And a part of that vision was to be enabled through scholarships, again, through the philanthropy of our sponsors. And today we are able to award our first scholarship to Yvette Mack-Tate. I have had the grand opportunity to have conversations with Yvette, and she is an HR executive with broad and extensive experience. And on top of that, she is a true servant leader that gets results. I want to encourage all of you in the audience, if you have the ability, to reach out and make connection with Yvette. Have a conversation. It is worth a conversation. It can start as a brief conversation, and it can go beyond that if the two of you choose for that to happen. But I do encourage you meeting this woman and learning more about who she is at her core and her abilities to join a great environment and create change. So let's learn more about Yvette Mack-Tate.
I'm dedicated and on my way to the stars. Thank God I made it. I'm having fun so far. Ooh, hey, what I know now is that dreams come true. You got to believe in you. Keep your eyes on the prize and your head up high. Motivation's what you need in your life. Motivation. I'm talking about motivation. Can you feel that motivation? Inspired by motivation. Yeah, I'm on my way up.
All right, thank you. Reach out to Yvette. I encourage that. And now I'd like you to put your focus on two other women who are ready and capable to get back into the workforce very quickly. Let's show them. Deborah Gaspari, a top HR professional, and Sue Gehm. And I would probably recognize Sue as someone who is a tremendous project manager. She goes cross-function. Okay, thank you all for joining us on our broadcast today. Go to our website, womenmakingnews.org. Consider sponsorship. Consider a donation. It's well worth it. And next month, August 18th at 12 o'clock noon Eastern, we will have our next broadcast. We thank you so much for being with us today.